Today it is my real pleasure to speak with Devan Gonzalez. Devan, you are a fitness entrepreneur, best-selling author, and host of the Mindset Cafe podcast. You are passionate about personal development, discipline, and helping people unlock their full potential, whether in fitness, business, or life. Devan, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to speak with you today.
Thank you. The pleasure is all mine. Thank you for having me on your show.
I'm looking forward to exploring with you some of the things that I have in mind is discipline, resilience, mental barriers, and breaking through them, stuff like that. Before we go there, um, tell us, you scaled a single gym into a national franchise. What was one of the hardest, since I said about mindset, mental barriers or mindset shifts, what was one of the hardest mindset shifts that you had to make along the way?
I would say the mindset shift of going from solopreneur to business owner to, CEO, and understanding that while they're similar, you have to think about the situations differently. You have to, really understand yourself and realize that your team is going to be built and really strengthened if you show them the way, and they don't know all the information that you know, right? And they don't know how you want it done because it's all in your head, right? And so that shift of, understanding that I need to better myself as a leader, better myself as a mentor, essentially, in my own personal development journey at each level, and knowing that personal development is a never-ending game.
Completely agree. I refer to it as a journey
Hmm.
myself without a destination. uh, this is certainly true. Can you let's talk about then? I mentioned already the discipline. So one thing that I know that you talk about is discipline over motivation, and that is something that personally, having studied discipline myself, I understand it. But for many people, they don't see the perhaps the value of discipline. They rely on motivation. So I would like to hear your thoughts on when motivation fades, or what is the role of that, and how can discipline really, if it is a matter of motivation, how can discipline change that? If it is not a matter of motivation, tell me about discipline instead.
No, definitely. And I mean, it's a great question because a lot of people get mixed up between being motivated and being disciplined. And that's why I like to differentiate the two. Motivation, there's two sides to it. There's external motivations, right? When you watch a David Goggins video, or you watch something that's an inspiration, you read an inspirational quote on Instagram, you get really inspired and you're like, yes, I'm going to go do that right now. And then an hour passes and you're like, well, I actually have to go do this, and then I'll go do it, and then you don't end up doing it, right? Because external motivations is fleeting, right? It comes, it goes. So what I like to have people focus on is discipline, right? Discipline doesn't necessarily mean that you need to be motivated to do something, right? But you know that you need to do it in order to achieve the results. I mean, I own a gym and I don't feel like working out every single day, right? And so it's like people, even our members, have like this misconception of that just because I'm a gym owner, or just because I'm a trainer, that I must love working out every single day. Not true. And if you have a personal trainer and they're telling you that they love working out every single day of the year, they're lying to you. There's days that they don't want to do it, but they do it because they know they need to do it, right? And so discipline is something, it's a skill, right? And just like leadership, right? It's built, and it's built through doing the things that you don't want to do on the days you don't want to do them, time and time again. And it starts to get easier to become more disciplined over repetition. Once you start to become disciplined, then you start to see the results of whatever you're trying to achieve. And once you start seeing some of the results, or the initial results, then you start to gain internal motivation, right? Then let's say for fitness, for example, all of a sudden you go to the gym day 1, you lift up your shirt, no change. Go to the gym day 2, lift up your shirt, no change. But after a month or so of it, all of a sudden you lift up your shirt and you see a little bit of, weight loss. You see a little bit of, definition starting to show in your arms. And all of a sudden you're like, I want more of that. Right. And so now that discipline has turned into motivation, but from an internal standpoint, and you don't need an Instagram quote or a reel to get you to go to the gym. You show up because you know that it's giving you the results.
I agree completely that the external motivation is something that is certainly not sustainable. It can push you into the direction, but can't keep you going. I, what you were saying about discipline and the results that you see that turn it into internal motivation, I will add to that from my personal experience that discipline, or you use the example that you don't feel like working out but you do it anyway, and this could be whatever it is that we are disciplined towards doing. Uh, for me, one very early reward, once I discipline myself, is I feel better about myself. So before I even see any external results, because I've done it, the first thing I feel is that, oh, I've done it. It's better for. So when I feel better about myself, then everything else, let's say in the day ahead, gets a bit better. So just adding to that in terms of discipline and how I personally have benefited from discipline in terms of self-esteem. I suppose I can call it like that.
No, exactly. I mean, discipline is a skill, like we're saying, and it translates into other things as well, right? One thing I like to say is like how you do one thing is how you do everything, right? So if you become more disciplined on achieving a goal, whether it's fitness, whether it's business, whatever, you're going to be naturally more disciplined on doing the other tasks throughout your day because you've already built that self-esteem, that self-confidence to achieve something even though you didn't feel like doing it, every single day. But also it kind of goes into, let's say for fitness, it goes into that aspect like you look good, you feel good, you do good. And so it's like when you achieve a task because you were disciplined, naturally you start to get a rush of endorphins. You feel, a little natural high essentially from a chemical, flood of those endorphins. And that leads into the rest of your day, right? You start to feel a little bit better about yourself. So everything that you do has a positive outlook versus you said you're going to go to the gym, you didn't go, then you're like, man, I wish I would have gone. And now you kind of are hard on yourself. And now everything throughout the day is a little tint of gray to it.
That resonates. I think many people will relate to what you said. If we don't do it, and then we think back and kind of regret it, and we have this negative mental dialogue that doesn't lead anywhere nice. We beat ourselves up, basically. Uh, since we are on this, I will remain on this topic of discipline, since it's very interesting. I would like to ask you specifically. You gave the example earlier about having a routine of going to the gym, or having a decision to go to the gym. And now I'm referring to someone listening to this conversation. And one day, one morning, as it happens to all of us, we don't feel like it, or there are, a very big, a very reasonable excuse comes up that. So, can you give us something practical? What is it that one can do to enhance, let's say, the ability to be disciplined at that time? Because as we all know, discipline, it is a daily battle. It's never something that is automatically won. Every single time you have to make the decision to do this kind of action. I hope my question is makes sense.
No, it does. And I think there's two parts to it, right? The first part is you need to find what your reason why is, right? And because let's say we'll stay, on the gym topic. with going to the gym, like there's a reason why you signed up at the gym, right? There's an initial reason. And that reason you might say is to lose weight, right? But why do you want to lose weight? Right. And you're like, well, because I want to feel better. Why do you want to feel better? Right. And you have to ask a few levels down to get your real why, right? Well, I want to feel better, and feeling better will allow me to have more energy with my kids or my grandkids. And okay, so you want to be able to play with your grandkids, and so now you know your reason why, right? And so it's not really about losing weight, it's about losing weight so you can feel better, play with your grandkids, and live a long healthy life for them. Got it. Now on the days that you don't feel good, I want you to remember that when you don't feel good and you don't feel like, you're just waking up, you're a little groggy, you don't really feel like going to the gym, are you really going to let your grandkids have, that version of you in the future? And then all of a sudden you're like, you start to get hard on yourself. Like, no, like I'm going to go. And the hardest part, I tell people, honestly, this is even for myself. Some days the hardest part is just showing up, right? Getting in the car, driving, let's say, to the gym. But then once you're at the gym, you're like, well, I'm already here. I might as well do the workout, right? And then you do the first exercise, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, this ain't so bad. You start to get into it, and then all of a sudden you finish your workout. You're like, all right, I'm proud of myself for doing that. It wasn't as hard as I was, making it seem, or as bad as I was making it seem in my own head, right? And so sometimes the hardest part is just showing up. And I want you to think of this. If the reason why isn't, pushing you enough, I want you to take this perspective on things, right? If someone told you they were going to do something for you and they didn't do it, how would that make you feel? Right? You wouldn't accept that, right? If they said they were going to give you this life, in this healthy life you can live with your grandkids, and they're going to do that for you, and they didn't do it, would you be upset? Right? Probably. So why would you not accept that why would you accept that from yourself? You were supposed to be your biggest fan and your biggest cheerleader, and you were the only person that could do that. So if someone else told you they're going to do something and didn't do it, you'd be mad. But if you tell yourself you're going to do something, you're not mad. That little shift in perspective, realizing that you have to be truthful to yourself, and you have to, be the most vulnerable and open with yourself, but hold yourself accountable, because at the end of the day, no one's going to do it for you.
Thank you. These are very useful. You said I got like three, let's say, things we can do to discipline ourselves when we don't feel like it. And the first was to reconnect with your why, or the deep why, actually. The second, I liked that you said just show up. You reminded me when I was training for the London Marathon a few years ago, and as you can imagine, it needed a lot of training, a lot of consistency, a lot of discipline, and sometimes I was exactly like that. I didn't feel like having to do a 10-mile run that was in the training routine at that time. I would trick myself. I see it like this now. I would trick my mind by saying, okay, I won't do all that. I'll just do 1 mile. And yeah, I can do 1 mile easily. And as you were saying, that, just by showing up, the moment I would be outside with my running shoes and start running, it would never be a mile. It would probably be the what, because it was easier then. I had already momentum. It is exactly the most difficult thing is to show up. So I share that as also my own example. And the third one you said, and I think that is fantastic as a perspective changing, is to look at what you are not doing as if it is someone else not doing it, and how you would hold them accountable, because we are very good at finding excuses for ourselves. So
Mhm.
thank you very much for this. I reiterated with my own words just to, because these are, I think, practical tools, because we've all been there. We said we would do something, and it's the last thing that we feel like doing at that moment, and we need sometimes the ways or the tools, if you want, to be able to snap out of it sometimes if we need to. So I don't know if you agree with this.
No, I do. I mean, it's the everything that you said, like in how you reframed it was perfect, right? It's practical. Sometimes it seems almost, too easy to work, but sometimes it's just the basics is all you need, right? You don't need these fancy, plans and stuff. Like sometimes you just have to show up, right? Like you said for running, like sometimes it's just telling yourself you're gonna do 1 mile, and then you start, get that snowball formed, and then all of a sudden, instead of a snowball going down a hill, it starts picking up momentum. The snow starts getting bigger, and all of a sudden now it's this huge, boulder of a snowball because it has all that momentum. But it's hard to get that momentum going. So you tell yourself, I'm gonna do one, and then you achieve one. You're like, well, I could do one more, and then you hit two, and you're like, I still got energy. I'm gonna do one more, three, and then you just keep that going. It's easy just to take your workout. Okay, I'm gonna go to the gym. I'm just gonna walk on the treadmill today, right? And then all of a sudden you start seeing the other people working out and pushing themselves. And you're like, well, I could do one exercise real quick. And then all of a sudden you're like, well, actually, I haven't done that exercise in a while. Let me do that one, right? And then all of a sudden, before you know it, you did a whole workout.
It is, it's indeed very clever when we do it, because our mind tricks us or tries to trick us all the time. So it's good when we have the ability to do it for our benefit. Devon, I'm going to shift gears, and there is one other topic that I'm very much intrigued to hear your thoughts about. And you talk about intentional action and the power that intentional action has. So, we all know and understand that action is necessary to achieve something, or success, or whatever it is that we want. What I would like to start with is, let me hear you define what, when you say intentional action, what do you mean exactly? And we'll take it from there.
So intentional action, meaning that you're full, like doing action just means you're doing something, right? But if you're going to do something, then do it to your best ability, right? Give it your full attention, give it your full ability, your full effort, right? Then if you don't, what's the purpose of doing it at all, right? And it goes into the kind of the understanding that time is the only thing that we have on this earth that is finite, right? That there is a limited amount of time, the one thing that we don't get back. So why waste your time doing something with half effort and still spending the same amount of time on it instead of just getting it done and doing it to the best of your ability? Because again, how you do one thing is how you do everything, right? So if you're going to go to the gym and then you spend an hour there, but you just kind of mosey around, you're talking with everyone, you're not really working out, or you went to the gym, you worked out for an hour, and did your best workout that you could to your ability, you're there for an hour both times. You lose an hour either way. But now what is the results of that compounded? A year later of that, you could be in the same place you are if you're doing that, just moseying around, checking on Facebook so everyone knows that you go to a gym. Or a year later, those compounded, hourly workouts that you gave your effort to and every intention to show. You don't need to check in on Facebook. People know that you have been going to the gym.
That's great. What do you think? Because for me, when I hear especially the word intention, apart from what you're saying, to give to the action the best of our ability, our focus, our attention, do it wholeheartedly and wholly. For me, the word intention also implies some energy or something mental, apart from the action itself. Obviously, you can do the action very focused, but I think there is a nuance there between focused and to the best of our ability, and intentional, because I think it implies something else. So what are your thoughts on?
No, yeah. So the flip side of that, right? I mean, I try to keep it on more of the basic side, kind of taking it down to the ground level for what we were talking about before. But intentional, like when you're doing action, or when you're doing something, what is the reason for you doing this, right? If you're scrolling through Instagram, are you just mindlessly scrolling, or are you scrolling looking for something? Are you looking for new ways to achieve your goal? Are you looking for inspiration to get you up on the next day? Are you looking for a new avenue in business? Are you looking what in being intentional? There's a purpose behind what you're doing. Why are you doing it? Because if there's no purpose behind what you're doing, then why are you doing it? Right? Why not spend that time working on yourself? Why not spend that time with your family instead of just mindlessly wasting time?
This is great. Thank you. And what you might not have used it the same words, but for me, it reminded me, or what you said prompted in me, the becoming mindful of the reason why we're doing it. So if we're sending an email, why are we sending it? That connects us with the intention. Or if we are at the gym, why? Or what? It is a very useful, and the becoming aware of the moment, the attention. So that's another part that I got from your answer. I would like to ask you before we start wrapping up, since I was telling you earlier that I always enjoy giving practical action tips to the listener. We've already done that, but I would like to ask one of yours, actually, perhaps a personal habit, a routine, something that you feel that has really made a big difference in your life, in your success, in what you have been doing.
Definitely. And honestly, it's a great question. And I will say this. I mean, I'll use my business as an example. And because people will give me, a pat on the back and say, wow, you're so lucky. Luck had nothing to do with it. Right. One of the things that has worked really well for me, not just in business, but in life, I used to do competitive, fighting and stuff like that. And I used to have to cut weight and all that kind of stuff. So the main thing I'm going to say is you have a goal, right? And set your goals big, right? And when you set that goal big, you might not know the journey there, right? And that's okay, right? Whether it's losing, I had to lose 30 pounds for a month, for a fight in a month one time, right? Or sorry, 2 months in one time, right? So goal is 30 pounds, right? Instead of being like, okay, I need to lose 1 pound all the way up. Oh, that's not 30. Do it again. Set the goal big and then break it down into smaller steps first. So, like, for example, everyone has their New Year's resolutions. What is the goal for you to achieve by the end of the year? Awesome. Now break that into quarterly goals. So every, 3 months. Now, what do you need to do to every 3 months to achieve this yearly goal? Then break those quarterly goals down into monthly goals, right? And then the monthly down to weekly. And all of a sudden, you start to look at it and you're like, oh, that's not that bad. If I could just do this every single week, that will lead up to this. And even if it doesn't, you'll be fairly close. I mean, we launched the gym. 2 years later, we launched the franchise. A year later, we, got our first franchise. A year later, we have 3 more coming on. Like everything's done if you just stick to the plan, whether you feel like it or you don't. But the thing is, I didn't know when we opened the business when we were going to franchise or what point, but we actually condensed our timeline because everything was just lining up. So you might set your yearly goal and you might achieve it in 8 months, 6 months, right? Because everything just started working out better in your favor. Instead of setting a yearly goal, waiting until July to really start on it, and then now you're trying to crunch everything in and then you don't achieve it, or maybe you get close to it. Imagine where you could have been if you just did that from the beginning, but you're taking small little bites out of it. The best way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time.
I like that, and having the goal, breaking it down, reverse engineering it to small little chunks that are manageable. Brilliant. Devan, where do you want to direct the listener of this conversation that wants to find out more?
I mean, you can go to my website, and it's not, I mean, there's not a lead form or anything like that. I made a website just to make a landing page for everything that I got going on. But it's just Devan, Devan Gonzalez, Gonzalez, .com.
That's great. And I also have two final quick questions. I always ask them and I get some very interesting answers. So I'm curious to hear yours. And the first one is, what does personal development mean to you?
Personal development to me is constantly improving yourself, right? And that's the base level answer. So that's not my full answer, right? That's just the base thing. But personal development to me, it really is the fact that you can get better at least 1% each day in one area of your life, whether it's your relationship with your family, whether it's work, whether it's fitness, whatever. Your goal is to essentially get a little bit better each day. And there is no end destination, right? Personal development is infinite. It's like the horizon, right? When you're looking at the horizon, you can't see the end. You can see where it gets smaller, but if you were able to walk there, you would realize that it goes out again just as far. So the same thing for personal development. Realize that it's a never-ending journey, and even though you have a yearly goal and stuff like that, that's awesome. That's just a fraction of you becoming the version of yourself that you were designed to be.
So true. And hypothetically, let's say you could go back in time and meet your 18-year-old self. What's one piece of advice you would give him?
18-year-old self, I would have told him to start sooner. you know, 18-year-old version of me was, just joining college and got into the frat life and, the fraternity life and everything like that, and not saying that I wasn't ambitious and motivated then, but a lot of the things that I've achieved could have been started earlier in my journey. And I probably would have told my 18-year-old self, maybe buy a Bitcoin,
Yes, of course. You reminded me of that phrase that said, if I had to live my life again, I would do the same mistakes, only sooner.
Yeah, exactly.
Devan, I want to thank you very much for this conversation. I enjoyed it very much, and I think there were some very useful and practical elements that came out of it, especially when we were talking about discipline. I want to wish you all the very best with your life and your mission. I will leave it to you for your final part in wisdom.
Thank you so much for having me. And I will say that if you have a goal, if you have a dream, and someone else has already achieved it or living the life that you're wanting to live, that is your proof. That is your testimonial to that it is possible for you, because you're not that special for it to not work out for you, but to be able to work out for someone else.